Maurice recently appeared on Carlos King's Monday night show along with Dustin Ross and Claudia Jordan, and the conversation quickly turned into an interesting back and forth about Martell. Maurice seemed ready to defend Martell, but Dustin and Claudia were not holding back. One of the first points Maurice made was that Martell had been battling with his back against the wall for 6 or 7 years, saying that the public had watched the breakdown of his family and that this kind of pressure can make a person feel like it's me versus everybody. He suggested that the public put Martell in a difficult space, which is why he reacts in certain ways. Dustin, however, was quick to correct Maurice. He made it clear that while Martell has faced challenges, he largely put himself in that space. Dustin pointed out that Martell has a long history of not taking accountability for his actions, shifting blame to others, and refusing to address the real issues. He explained that it's frustrating to watch because Martell avoids the core problems, even when he slightly admits wrongdoing. Instead of showing genuine understanding or growth, Martell sidesteps the truth and continues behaviors that have harmed his relationships and public image. Dustin even said that watching Martell on TV can make you want to shake your TV because of how often he avoids taking responsibility. He described Martell as someone who pushes buttons, deflects, and manipulates situations so that he appears to be the victim. This way, if someone reacts strongly to him, he can claim they were in the wrong while he maintains his victim stance. Dustin wasn't sugarcoating anything. Claudia also weighed in and agreed that Martell seems like he would be a nightmare to deal with in a relationship. She echoed Dustin's points about him pushing people's buttons and deflecting, saying it's not just something that might happen in a romantic relationship but could happen in any type of relationship with him, whether professional, family, or friendship. She found his behavior manipulative and immature. Claudia also seemed amused by how Maurice was defending Martell, especially when Maurice suggested that all the men on the show gossip, not just Martell. At one point, the discussion shifted to Chris Fletcher's comment that Maurice and his brother have women sign NDAs. Chris Fletcher is seen as someone respected in Huntsville, and when he made the claim, it raised eyebrows. Maurice denied it, saying he didn't even hang out with Chris Fletcher like that and was confused about where the claim came from. He said he didn't like the comment because it also involved his wife, Kimmy, and he prefers criticisms to be aimed at him alone. He insisted that Chris Fletcher was wrong to make that statement and even accused him of lying about it later. Claudia and Dustin kept the conversation sharp. They noted that Martell himself often makes comments that stir the pot and create drama, including remarks about Maurice's whiff. Dustin pointed out that Martell's behavior is consistently messy and that he enjoys gossiping. Claudia added that you could often tell when Martell is about to lie because he clears his throat beforehand. She laughed about how it's almost like a tell in poker, you just know something questionable is about to come out of his mouth. The group even joked about putting together a compilation video of Martell clearing his throat before lying. Some people in the comments agreed and pointed out other mannerisms they've noticed, such as Martell looking down at his shoes or smirking before making certain statements. It became a running joke in the conversation, but underneath the laughter, it was clear that Claudia and Dustin were calling out Martell's lack of honesty. When Claudia directly told Carlos that she thinks he favors Martell over other cast members, it was another moment that stood out. She said it in a straightforward way, and while Carlos tried to claim he likes everyone equally, Claudia didn't seem convinced. She said that from her perspective, it looks like Martell is treated as a favorite, and the way production accommodates him makes that even more obvious. Maurice, meanwhile, kept trying to balance defending himself and defending Martell. When Claudia called Martell messy, Maurice countered by saying all the men gossip. But it didn't take away from the fact that Martell has made personal comments about him and his wife. Claudia seemed to think it was strange that Maurice would still defend Martell despite this. She also pointed out that Martell has accused Maurice of things in the past and still maintains a friendship with him, which says a lot about how Maurice chooses to handle conflict. Dustin's correction of Maurice was one of the strongest moments in the discussion. Maurice had said, they put Martell in a bad space, and Dustin stopped him to say that Martell put himself there. Dustin made it clear that while the public and other cast members might react to Martell's behavior, those reactions are based on Martell's own choices. He refused to let Maurice create a narrative where Martell is only a victim of circumstance. Claudia's comments added another layer because she also drew attention to the manipulative side of Martell's personality. She talked about how he pushes people's buttons intentionally, which is not something a person does if they are genuinely trying to improve themselves or repair relationships. Her observations came across as both sharp and accurate, and she didn't shy away from saying them directly in front of Carlos and Maurice. Another interesting part of the discussion was when Claudia asked Carlos if Martell would be coming on the show next week because she might want to call in. She said it with a mix of humor and challenge, almost inviting a direct conversation with Martell. She even said, "Bring him on," making it clear she wasn't afraid to confront him. This showed her confidence in being able to handle Martell and stand her ground if a debate happened. Maurice also expressed frustration over Chris Fletcher's NDA comment, but what stood out is that some people see this as selective outrage. When Maurice has made questionable comments about his wife in the past, such as joking about her hair or making suggestive remarks, he didn't seem as concerned about how those might affect her. But when someone else makes a claim involving Kimmy, he reacts strongly. This inconsistency is something viewers have noticed, and it makes his defense of Martell seem even more puzzling. Claudia and Dustin brought humor into the conversation, but they also brought directness. They didn't let Maurice slide into vague explanations or deflections. When he tried to broaden the gossip issue to all the men, they kept the focus on Martell's specific behavior. This kind of exchange made the conversation feel sharper and more revealing because Maurice was not in full control of the narrative the way he might be with less outspoken people. The playful roasting about Martell's tells, before lying, like clearing his throat or looking down, was a light-hearted way of pointing out a serious issue, Martell's credibility. It also highlighted how much viewers and co-hosts notice about his behavior. These little habits become symbols of his avoidance of the truth, and the fact that people could name them so quickly says a lot about how often he might be doing it. Carlos's reaction to Claudia saying he favors Martell was telling. While he tried to brush it off and say he likes everyone, the conversation hinted that Claudia and Dustin both suspect Martell receives special treatment. This might explain why Martell continues certain behaviors without much consequence from production, while others might be held to a different standard. The overall exchange between Maurice, Dustin, and Claudia painted a clear picture. Maurice is willing to defend Martell even when others point out patterns of bad behavior, while Dustin and Claudia are more interested in holding Martell accountable. The conversation also revealed some of the group dynamics, where certain people might avoid challenging Martell directly, but Claudia and Dustin are not afraid to do so. In the end, Maurice's appearance on the show became less about defending himself from Chris Fletcher's comment and more about how far he would go to shield Martell from criticism. Dustin and Claudia didn't let him create a story where Martell is simply misunderstood. They reminded everyone that his actions are at the root of his problems. The mix of humor, sharp observation, and blunt honesty made for an engaging conversation that showed exactly why these topics keep sparking debate among fans.